What would you do if your entire life's work was dismissed with a single glance? The question hangs in the air like incense in a forgotten temple as Steven Seagal adjusts his black belt one final time, at 47 years old. Silver threading through his ponytail, hands that have moved like water through 10,000 forms now trembling just slightly as he parks outside Tanaka's traditional dojo. This is his sanctuary. Has been for 23 years. The place where a confused teenager first learned that violence and art could be the same thing. Steven pushes through the glass doors expecting the familiar bow from receptionist Maya, the respectful nod from junior instructors, the quiet acknowledgement that comes with being the dojo's most dedicated student. Instead, silence. Maya doesn't look up from her computer screen. Her fingers tap against the keyboard like rain on a tin roof. Deliberate. Cold. Master Chin emerges from the back office, his usually warm eyes now flat as stones. "Steven, we need to talk." The words cut through the air sharper than any blade. "I've been thinking about the demonstration next week. The one for the visiting masters from Kyoto. The one that could bring honor to our school." Steven's heart quickens. He's been preparing for months. The kata he's perfected. The breathing techniques. The meditation practices that have become more prayer than exercise. "I don't think you should participate." The world tilts. Steven's hand instinctively reaches for the worn wooden bench where he's tied his shoes 10,000 times. "What?" Chin's face remains unchanged. Carved from granite. Unmoved by the confusion spreading across Steven's features like spilled ink on rice paper. "That you're getting older, Steven. Your movements aren't what they used to be. These masters, they expect perfection. They expect a certain image." The words hang between them heavy with unspoken meaning. Steven has heard this before. In restaurants where servers suddenly can't find his reservation. In department stores where security guards follow him through the aisles. In job interviews where qualifications somehow aren't enough. But never here. Never in this place where skill speaks louder than appearances. Where dedication matters more than demographics. "I see." Steven's voice comes out smaller than he intended. The sound of air leaving a punctured tire. Maya finally looks up. Her eyes dart between Steven and Chun like a cornered animal searching for escape routes. The silence stretches until it becomes uncomfortable for everyone except Steven, who has learned to live in uncomfortable spaces. "I understand, Master Chun." But he doesn't. Not really. 23 years of loyalty. 23 years of arriving first and leaving last. 23 years of teaching younger students without asking for payment. 23 years of representing this dojo at tournaments where his presence alone elevated their reputation. All of it dismissed with corporate speak and careful distance. Steven bows. Not because he wants to, but because some habits run deeper. Then disappointment, as he turns to leave, his peripheral vision catches something that makes his chest tighten. On Master Chin's desk. Partially hidden beneath papers. A framed photograph. Steven recognizes it immediately. The 1985 National Championships. Steven, barely 24, holding a trophy almost as tall as himself. Chin beside him, beaming with pride. Both of them younger. Both of them believers in the purity of martial arts. That photograph has sat on Chin's desk for nearly 2 decades. A reminder of what dedication can accomplish. Now it's face down. Hidden. Like a secret that brings shame instead of honor. Steven pushes through the glass doors, and the afternoon sun hits him like a physical blow. His Toyota Camry sits in the parking lot 20 feet away, but the distance feels like crossing an ocean. Behind him through the window, he can see Chun and Maya already deep in conversation. Animated gestures, relieved expressions, the body language of people who have just solved a difficult problem. Steven gets in his car, but doesn't start the engine. His hands rest on the steering wheel as he stares at the dojo that has been his second home for more than half his adult life. The neon sign. In the window flickers. Traditional martial arts. Honor. Respect. Discipline. Words that apparently come with conditions. Fine print. Expiration dates. Steven's phone buzzes. A text from his daughter Emma. "How was practice, Dad? Can't wait to see your demonstration next week." He stares at the message until the words blur. His thumb hovers over the keyboard searching for truth that won't crush her faith in justice. In the rearview mirror, 2 teenage students walk toward the dojo entrance. Their GIs crisp and white. Their movements confident. Their faces unmarked by the weight of other people's limitations. They have no idea that excellence sometimes isn't enough. That dedication can be discarded. That honor is negotiable. Stephen finally starts the engine. As he pulls out of the parking lot, he doesn't look back. Some bridges burn themselves. Stephen drives through the city like a ghost navigating familiar haunts. Every red light becomes a moment. To replay Master Chen's words, every turn echoes with the sound of 23 years crumbling like old paper. His apartment building rises from the concrete like a monument to modest dreams. Third floor, corner unit. Windows that face east so he can watch the sunrise during morning meditation. The elevator hums its mechanical prayer as Stephen ascends carrying the weight of invisible rejection. His keys feel foreign in hands that have moved with such precision for decades. The lock turns with a click that sounds like a coffin closing. Inside, the shrine. Not a religious altar, but something more personal. A corner of his living room dedicated to the art that has defined him since he was 17. Photographs from tournaments. Certificates of achievement. A wooden staff carved by his first instructor. Meditation beads worn smooth by 10,000 repetitions of the same prayer. And there, on the highest shelf, wrapped in silk. Stephen's katana, not a weapon, an extension of soul. Forged in Japan by a master swordsmith whose family has been creating these instruments for 8 generations. Stephen earned this blade through 15 years of disciplined practice. Saved for 3 years to afford it. Traveled to Kyoto to receive it properly. Learned the ceremonies required to honor such craftsmanship. He unwraps it now with reverence that borders on worship. The steel catches the afternoon light and throws it back transformed, purified, made sacred. Stephen holds the katana at eye level, studies his reflection in the polished surface. The face looking back appears older than it did this morning, worn down by small cruelties that accumulate like dust on neglected furniture. His phone rings. Emma's ringtone. The opening notes of her favorite song from when she was 12. Dad? You sound weird. Did something happen at practice? Stephen sets the katana on its stand and walks to the window. Below, the city moves with purpose he no longer feels. Practice was different today. Different how? The silence stretches until Emma fills it with concern. Dad, you're scaring me. What happened, Master? Chen thinks I shouldn't participate in next week's demonstration. Why? The question hangs between them like a bridge neither wants to cross. He thinks I'm not ready, but you've been preparing for months. You practice every single day. You know those forms better than anyone. Stephen closes his eyes. Emma's faith cuts, deeper than Chen's dismissal. Pure belief uncontaminated by the world's compromises. Sometimes, sweetheart, being ready isn't enough. That doesn't make sense, and oh, it doesn't. Emma's breath catches on the other end of the line. She's 22 now, old enough to recognize the spaces between words where truth hides. This is about you being. She pauses. Her voice becomes careful. This is about race, isn't it? Stephen's reflection stares back from the window. Japanese features inherited from a mother who died when he was 10. American citizenship earned through birth, but questioned through glances. I don't know, Emma. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't matter what it's about. It matters to me. Stephen's chest tightens. This is the conversation he spent her entire life trying to avoid. The moment when innocence meets reality and breaks like glass on concrete. Listen to me, sweetheart. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some fights just leave everyone more wounded than when they started. Oh, you're just going to quit. Stephen turns away from the window. His eyes find the katana resting in its stand. The blade seems to pulse with its own light. Alive. Waiting. I'm going to do what I've always done. Practice. Study. Improve. With or without Master Chen's permission, Emma's voice brightens with something that might be hope. Good. Because I was planning to bring some friends to watch you next week. I've been bragging about my dad, the martial artist, for months. The words hit Stephen like physical blows. Emma's pride. Her friends' expectations. The story she's constructed. About a father who never gives up. I should go, sweetheart. I need to think. Okay, Dad. But remember what you always told me when I was little. What's that? Excellence speaks louder than excuses. Stephen ends the call and stands in his living room surrounded by the artifacts of a life dedicated to a single pursuit. Excellence speaks louder than excuses, his own words thrown back at him by a daughter who still believes the world operates on merit alone. Outside, the sun begins its descent toward the horizon. Golden light streams through his windows and illuminates the katana until it seems to glow from within. Stephen approaches the blade and places his hand on the silk wrapping. The metal feels warm despite the cool air. Tomorrow he will return to the dojo, not to ask for permission, not to plead his case, but to practice, because some things transcend other people's limitations. Some truths cut deeper than rejection. Morning arrives like an unwelcome visitor. Stephen wakes before his alarm, as he has every day for 23 years. 5:30 a.m. The city still wrapped in pre-dawn darkness. His body moves through the familiar ritual. Green tea, simple breakfast, meditation facing east as the first light creeps over rooftops like a cautious animal. But today the routine feels different. Heavier. Each movement weighted with the knowledge that he returns to a place where he is no longer welcome. The drive to Tanaka's dojo passes in silence. No radio, no distractions, just Stephen and his thoughts moving through empty streets toward an uncertain reception. He parks in his usual spot, muscle memory guiding him to the space he has claimed through years of consistency. The dojo sits quiet. In the morning gloom, windows dark, sign unlit. But Stephen has a key, has had one for 15 years. A symbol of trust that perhaps no longer applies. Inside, the familiar smell of polished wood and dedication. The scent of countless hours spent in pursuit of something greater than self. Stephen changes into his GI in the small locker room, where mirrors reflect not just his image, but his history. Every scar tells a story of growth. Every line maps a journey toward mastery. The main floor stretches before him like a blank canvas waiting for the brushstrokes of practiced forms. Stephen begins with breathing exercises. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The rhythm that centers mind and body in shared purpose. Then movement. Slow at first, deliberate. Each gesture flowing into the next like water, finding its natural course. The kata unfolds with mathematical precision. Every step exactly where it should be. Every turn timed to the heartbeat of ancient wisdom. Stephen moves through the forms with the fluidity of someone who has internalized perfection. Not performing but being. Not executing but expressing. This is what Master Chin wants to hide. This dedication. This artistry. This living embodiment of everything the dojo claims to represent. Footsteps in the hallway. Stephen continues his practice, but his peripheral awareness tracks the approaching presence. Heavy boots. Confident stride. The walk of someone who owns the space they inhabit. The door opens. Jake Morrison enters like a storm system, disrupting calm weather. Tanaka's assistant instructor. 35 years old. Built like a linebacker. With the subtlety of a sledgehammer, Morrison stops just inside the doorway. His eyes narrow as they take in Stephen's flowing movements. Didn't expect to see you here. Stephen completes his current sequence before acknowledging the interruption. Control extends beyond physical movement. Good morning, Jake. Morrison steps further into the training area. His presence fills the space with aggressive energy. The kind of man who mistakes volume for authority. Thought Master Chin made things clear yesterday. Stephen begins a new kata, more complex, requiring deeper focus. His way of saying that some conversations don't deserve the dignity of response, that you're making this harder than it needs to be. The words bounce off Stephen's concentration like rain on stone. He flows through a particularly difficult transition. One leg high, arms extended. Perfect balance held for exactly 3 heartbeats. Morrison's frustration becomes visible. His hands clench into fists. His breathing grows shallow and quick. You think you're better than the rest of us? Think your little dance impresses anyone? Stephen pivots into a spinning technique that ends with him facing Morrison directly. Eye contact without aggression. Acknowledgement without submission. I think discipline speaks for itself. Morrison laughs. The sound carries no humor. Just the bitter edge of someone who has confused cruelty with strength. Discipline? You're 47 years old, playing dress-up in pajamas. Time to grow up and find a real hobby. The insult slides past Stephen like wind through bamboo. He has heard worse, survived worse, transcended worse. But something else enters the room. Quiet footsteps in the hallway. The soft shuffle of someone trying not to be noticed. Kenji appears in the doorway. The dojo's janitor. 73 years old. Bent with age, but carrying himself with the dignity of someone who understands the value of honest work. Kenji's eyes take in the scene. Morrison's aggressive posture. Steven's calm defiance. The tension crackling between them like electricity before a storm. The old man says nothing, but his presence changes the dynamic. A witness to what might otherwise remain. Hidden, Morrison notices Kenji's arrival. His expression shifts from open hostility to calculated performance. The kind of adjustment people make when they remember they have an audience. Just giving our friend here some friendly advice. Helping him understand the new direction master. Chen wants for the school. Kenji nods slightly. Not agreement. Just acknowledgement that words have been spoken. His weathered hands grip the mop handle like a staff. His posture, despite age and infirmity, carries the unmistakable bearing of someone who has spent decades in martial arts. The recognition passes between Steven and Kenji like a secret handshake. Practitioner to practitioner. Student to student. The bond that transcends politics and prejudice. Morrison senses the shift in atmosphere. His temporary authority undermined by an audience he cannot intimidate. Whatever. Just remember what we talked about. Some traditions need to evolve that he leaves with the same aggressive energy he brought. A man who has confused noise with importance. Steven and Kenji remain in the training area. The silence between them more honest than Morrison's words. Kenji approaches Steven's practice space. His movements, despite his age, show traces of refined technique. The muscle memory of someone who once moved with grace. You practice very beautifully, Steven. Bows in response. Recognition from one practitioner to another. Thank you, Kenji-san. The old man's eyes sparkle with something that might be mischief. Some people see only the surface. They miss the true art underneath. He shuffles away, leaving Steven alone with his practice and a growing sense that he has allies in unexpected places. Steven returns to his forms. But now the movements carry additional weight. Not just personal expression, but quiet rebellion. Not just practice, but protest. The morning sun streams through windows, illuminating the training floor, where dedication continues to unfold regardless of who approves. 3 days pass like a slow fever. Steven maintains his routine. Morning practice. Afternoon work at the accounting firm, where numbers behave with predictable logic unlike people. Evening meditation in his apartment, surrounded by the artifacts of a lifetime's dedication. But something has shifted. The dojo feels different now. Hostile territory disguised as sanctuary. Wednesday morning, Steven arrives early as always. The parking lot empty except for Master Chen's black Mercedes and Morrison's lifted pickup truck. Through the windows, Steven can see them deep in conversation. Chen's gestures animated. Morrison nodding with the enthusiasm of a conspirator. Steven changes in the locker room, where whispered conversations die abruptly when he appears. Junior students who once sought his guidance now avoid eye contact like witnesses to a crime. The training floor feels smaller today, more confining, as if invisible walls have moved closer while he wasn't watching. Steven begins his morning forms, but the familiar movements feel labored. Heavy. Weighed down by the accumulating pressure of unwelcome scrutiny, Morrison emerges from the office. With 3 junior instructors trailing behind him like ducklings following their mother, today's lesson is about practical application. Real-world scenarios. Not fancy exhibitions that look pretty but serve no purpose. The words carry clear intent. A public dismissal of everything Steven represents. The junior instructors nod with the enthusiasm of people eager to please authority. Their eyes dart towards Steven, then away like moths avoiding flame. Morrison demonstrates a basic self-defense technique. Crude but effective. The martial arts equivalent of fast food. Satisfying hunger without nourishing the soul. This is what people need. Simple. Direct. No unnecessary flourishes. Steven continues his kata, but his awareness tracks every word. Every gesture, every subtle attempt to diminish the art he loves. Morrison's voice grows louder, more theatrical, playing to his audience of eager students. Some people get confused about what martial arts actually means. They think it's about looking graceful, moving like a dancer, impressing judge-sat tournaments. Laughter ripples through the group. Not genuine amusement, but the nervous laughter of people unsure whether they're witnessing instruction or bullying. But real martial arts is about results. About protecting yourself and your family in dangerous situations. Not about winning style points from people who've never been in a real fight. Steven's movements become more precise, more focused. his way of responding to provocation without descending to Morrison's level. The kata reaches its most demanding sequence, a series of techniques that flow together like chapters in an unwritten book, each movement perfectly balanced, each transition mathematically exact. Despite himself, Morrison's attention becomes captured by the display of pure skill unfolding before him. The junior instructors stop their chatter. Their eyes follow Stephen's movements with the fascination of people witnessing something they don't fully understand but recognize as extraordinary. Stephen completes the sequence with a final technique that ends in perfect stillness. Not performance, pure expression of internalized mastery. The silence stretches until it becomes uncomfortable. Morrison clears his throat. His voice carries less confidence than before. Like I said, pretty to look at. But when's the last time you used that in a real situation? Stephen turns to face Morrison directly. Eye contact without challenge. Honesty without aggression. The question assumes that martial arts exists only for violence. Morrison's eyes narrow. His audience shifts uncomfortably. The conversation has taken a turn toward philosophical territory where his authority feels less secure. Everything else is just dancing. Stephen steps forward. Not aggressive movement, simply closing the distance. Between them, his presence calm but undeniable. Dancing requires discipline, timing, respect for form, dedication to beauty. If martial arts is dancing, then I am honored to be a dancer. The words land like stones thrown into still water. Ripples of meaning spreading outward in directions Morrison cannot predict or control. One of the junior instructors, a young woman named Sarah, steps slightly forward. Her movement barely perceptible but significant. A shift in allegiance that Morrison cannot ignore. The front door chimes. Master Chen enters carrying coffee and the morning newspaper. His eyes take in the scene. The gathered students. Morrison's defensive posture. Stephen's quiet dignity. What's happening here? Morrison straightens. His voice regains its artificial confidence. Just discussing training philosophy. Different approaches to martial arts education. Chen's gaze moves between the two men. His expression, unreadable. Stephen, my office. Now, Stephen bows to the assembled students. Not because hierarchy demands it, but because respect for others transcends personal conflict. He follows Chun toward the back office, while Morrison attempts to recapture his audience's attention with renewed demonstrations of practical techniques. But the spell has been broken. The junior instructors whisper among themselves, their eyes still tracking toward the office where difficult conversations await. Chin closes the door with the finality of someone preparing to deliver unwelcome news. Stephen stands before the desk where his photograph from 1985 remains face down beneath scattered papers. Hidden like evidence of a crime never committed, the silence stretches between them like a bridge neither wants to cross. Outside, Morrison's voice continues its lecture on practical applications and real-world scenarios. The sound carries through. Thin walls like distant thunder promising storms still to come. Chun sits behind his desk. His fingers drum against the wooden surface in rhythm with unspoken anxiety. Stephen, we need to discuss your future here. The words hang in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Visible proof that something once warm has grown cold. Chen's office feels smaller than Stephen remembers. The walls seem to press inward like the world itself is contracting around this moment. 23 years of shared history reduced to uncomfortable silence. Stephen remains standing while Chen shuffles papers. On his desk, nervous energy disguised as busy work. The photograph from 1985 still lies face down beneath quarterly reports and insurance documents. A memory too dangerous to display. Stephen, you've been a dedicated student. No one questions that. But the word hangs between them like a sword suspended by a fraying thread. But the dojo is changing. Our student base is different now. Younger, more diverse. They expect certain things. Stephen's eyes find a diploma on the wall. Chen's certification from the International Martial Arts Federation. Dated 1983. 2 years before Stephen's championship. Photograph was taken 2 years before Chun achieved the recognition that launched his teaching career. What things do they expect? Chen's fingers stop drumming. His eyes avoid Stephen's direct gaze. Energy. Innovation. Instructors who can relate to their experiences. The words taste like ash in the quiet air. Corporate speak wrapped around uncomfortable truths. Morrison represents the future of martial arts education. Dynamic. engaging, marketable. Stephen feels something crack inside his chest. Not anger, not even disappointment. Something deeper. The sound of faith breaking apart like ice in spring. I see. Chin finally meets Stephen's eyes. For a moment, the mask slips. Genuine regret flickers across his weathered features that it's not personal. Stephen, it's business. Stephen nods slowly, understanding flooding through him like cold water. The demonstration next week. Chin shakes his head. Morrison will handle the exhibition. He's been working on a presentation that showcases our new direction, modern applications, self-defense scenarios, mixed martial arts integration. That Stephen's gaze drifts to the window where late afternoon sunlight streams through dusty glass. Outside, the city continues its relentless motion. People pursuing their individual purposes without awareness that something sacred is dying in a small office above a martial arts school. I understand, Master Chen. The title feels foreign now. A formality stripped of its original meaning. Chen reaches into his desk drawer. His movements deliberate but reluctant. There is one more thing. That he produces a small wrapped package. Rectangular. About the size of a book. The paper is traditional Japanese. Cream-colored with subtle gold patterns. This belonged to your mother. Stephen's world stops rotating. Mei Nakamura brought this to the dojo in 1978. You were 15. Angry. Lost. Getting into fights at school. She asked me to teach you discipline. Focus. A way to channel your energy into something constructive. Stephen's hands remain at his sides. Not reaching for the package. Not ready to accept whatever truth it contains. She never told you about her background. About who she was before she came to America. Chun unwraps the package with reverence reserved for sacred objects. Inside, a photograph. Black and white. Slightly faded but still clear. A young Japanese woman in formal martial arts attire, standing beside an elderly master in what appears to be a traditional dojo. Mountains visible through open doors. The composition speaks of ceremony, of achievement, of honor. Your mother, Mei Seagal, was a student of Master Takashi Yamamoto, one of only 3 women ever to achieve black belt ranking in his school. Stephen stares at the photograph. The woman's face is unmistakably his mother's, but younger, stronger, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who has mastered something difficult. She came to America in 1962, married your father. Had you? But she never stopped practicing, never stopped believing in the art that shaped her. Chin points to the elderly master in the photograph. Master Yamamoto was my teacher's teacher. The lineage that connects our dojo to the traditional schools of Japan. Your mother asked me to give this to you when you were ready to understand what it means. Stephen's vision blurs slightly. The photograph seems to pulse with its own light. His mother, young and strong, representing everything he has spent his adult life trying to honor. She made me promise to wait until you had achieved true mastery. Not just technique, but understanding. The wisdom that comes only through years of dedicated practice. Chin's voice grows softer, more personal. That I've been waiting 23 years to give this to you. Stephen finally reaches for the photograph. His fingers trace the edges where time has left its mark. Your mother would be proud of what you've become. The dedication, the skill, the way you've honored her memory through your practice. The irony cuts deeper than any blade. The photograph that proves his worthiness offered as consolation for his dismissal. I know this doesn't change the situation with the demonstration, but I wanted you to know who you really are, where you come from. Stephen holds the photograph up to the light. His mother's face gazes back across decades of separation. Her expression carries the same quiet determination he sees in his own mirror. Every morning, she believed in the purity of martial arts. The idea that skill and dedication transcend all other considerations. Chun stands behind his desk, his body language suggesting the conversation has reached its natural conclusion. Take some time to process this. We can discuss your future here when you're ready. Stephen carefully wraps the photograph in its protective paper. The motion automatic, reverent, his mother's legacy hidden away just like Chin's photograph of Stephen's achievements, both buried beneath the weight of other people's limitations. Thank you, Master Chin, for keeping your promise. Stephen bows one final time, not to Chun, but to the memory of his mother, to the lineage that flows through his veins regardless of who chooses to acknowledge it. He leaves the office carrying proof of his heritage, evidence that excellence runs deeper than surface judgments. The photograph feels warm against his chest, a bridge connecting him to something larger than any single dojo's politics. The week passes like a countdown to execution. Stephen continues his morning practice, but the dojo feels haunted now. Every familiar corner carrying echoes of conversations that ended his belonging. Friday arrives with unseasonable heat, the kind of weather that makes everything feel heavier. More oppressive, Stephen sits in his apartment, holding his mother's photograph. The black and white image has become his morning meditation, a reminder that worthiness doesn't require external validation. His phone buzzes. Emma's daily check-in. Tomorrow's the big day, Dad. My friends are so excited to see you perform. Sarah's been studying martial arts videos all week to understand what she's watching. Stephen stares at the message until the words blur together. Emma's excitement radiates through the digital connection like sunlight through a prism that he types carefully. About tomorrow, sweetheart. The cursor blinks after the ellipsis, waiting for truth that will shatter his daughter's faith in justice. Stephen deletes the message and types instead, I'll do my best to make you proud. The lie tastes like copper in his mouth. Saturday morning arrives gray and humid. The sky the color of old pewter. Stephen dresses with particular care. His best GI, perfectly pressed, every fold precisely placed. His black belt tied with ceremonial exactness. If this is his final appearance at Tanaka's dojo, he will represent his mother's legacy with dignity. The parking lot fills early. Cars bearing license plates from neighboring cities. The visiting masters from Kyoto arrive in a chartered van. 3 elderly men moving with the careful precision of those who have dedicated lifetimes to their art. Stephen parks in his usual spot and sits for a moment watching the stream of spectators entering the building. Emma's car pulls into a nearby space. She emerges with 3 friends, all young women in their 20s, bright with anticipation, carrying flowers for a performance that will not happen. Stephen's chest constricts, the weight of inevitable disappointment settling on his shoulders. Like snow, inside the dojo has been transformed. Folding chairs arranged in rows. A small stage constructed at the front. Banners displaying the school's achievements hanging from the ceiling. The photograph from Stephen's 1985 championship nowhere to be seen. Emma spots him immediately. Her face lights up with pride that cuts through Stephen's composure like a blade. Dad, you look amazing. So official. She introduces her friends who shake Stephen's hand with the deference reserved for experts in fields they don't understand. Sarah speaks first, her voice carrying genuine curiosity. Emma's told us so much about your dedication. 25 years of practice. That's incredible commitment. 23 years, Stephen corrects gently. But yes, it's been a significant part of my life. The visiting masters take their seats in the front row, their presence lending gravity to the occasion. Master Chin approaches them with the deference of a student greeting his superiors. Conversations in rapid Japanese. Bows of mutual respect. The formal courtesies that precede serious evaluation of martial arts skill. Morrison appears from the back office wearing a new GI. Crisp white with his name embroidered in gold thread. The costume of someone playing a role rather than living a truth. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, we'll begin our demonstration shortly. Stephen finds himself moving toward the staging area from habit. Muscle memory overriding conscious awareness of his exile. Morrison intercepts him with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Stephen, good to see you. Thanks for coming to support the school. The words carry the weight of dismissal wrapped in false courtesy. Emma watches the interaction from her seat, her expression shifting from excitement to confusion. Dad, aren't you performing today? The question carries across the suddenly quiet room. Other conversations pause, attention focusing on the moment like light through a magnifying glass. Morrison's smile becomes more theatrical. His voice projects to the gathered audience that Stephen's been such a dedicated student over the years. But today we're showcasing our new instructional approach. He gestures toward the junior instructors who have arranged themselves near the stage. Young, energetic, moving with the confidence of people who have never questioned their place in the world. Emma stands from her chair. Her voice carries the dangerous edge of someone discovering betrayal. What do you mean? My father has been preparing for months. The room grows quieter. Even the visiting masters sense the tension building like pressure before a storm. Master Chun approaches with the careful steps of someone navigating unstable ground. Miss Seagal, your father is a valued member of our community. But today's demonstration focuses on contemporary applications of martial arts. Emma's friends exchange uncomfortable glances. The flowers they brought suddenly feeling like props in a play that has taken an unexpected turn that I don't understand. Emma's voice cracks slightly. The sound of faith beginning to fracture. My father knows more about martial arts than anyone in this room. Morrison steps forward with the aggressive confidence of someone who has claimed victory too early. Traditional forms have their place, but modern students need practical skills, real-world applications. That he demonstrates a basic self-defense technique. Crude but effective. The martial arts equivalent of fast food. This is what people can actually use. Emma's face flushes with anger. Her voice rises above the murmured conversations of confused spectators. You're wrong. The words ring through the transformed dojo like a bell calling everyone to witness. Stephen steps toward his daughter, his movement fluid despite the chaos surrounding them. Emma, it's okay, but it's not okay. And everyone in the room knows it. The visiting masters observe the scene with the detached interest of scholars studying human nature. One of them, the eldest, with a beard white as fresh snow, rises from his chair. His voice carries the authority of someone who has spent decades distinguishing between authenticity and performance. Perhaps we could see both approaches, traditional and modern. For comparison, the suggestion hangs in the air like smoke from an offering bowl. Chun and Morrison exchange glances. The weight of unexpected scrutiny from experts they cannot dismiss. Stephen feels his mother's photograph in his jacket pocket. The moment has arrived. The eldest visiting master remains standing. His weathered hands rest on a walking stick carved from bamboo. His eyes, the color of winter storms, survey the room with the patience of someone who has witnessed countless moments of truth. I am Master Hibiki. His voice carries the weight of 70 years dedicated to the martial way. In Japan, we have a saying: the tree that bends survives the storm. But the tree with the deepest roots bends without breaking. He looks directly at Stephen, then at Morrison, then at Master Chun. Show us your roots. The challenge hangs in the air like incense smoke. Visible, tangible, unavoidable. Morrison steps forward with the confidence of someone who has confused volume with authority. Master Hibiki, I'd be honored to demonstrate our modern approach. He signals the junior instructors who arrange themselves in formation. Their movements sharp, aggressive, designed to impress rather than express. Morrison launches into a sequence of techniques borrowed from mixed martial arts. Effective but soulless. The martial equivalent of machine-manufactured furniture. Functional but forgettable. The demonstration lasts 5 minutes. Energetic, loud, punctuated by Morrison's running commentary about practical applications. When it ends, polite applause ripples through the audience. The sound of obligation rather than appreciation. Master Hibiki nods slightly. His expression unreadable, interesting, modern indeed. He turns toward Stephen, his gaze penetrating but not unkind. And you? Will you share your understanding of the way? Stephen feels every eye in the room focus on him. Emma's hopeful face, Chin's anxious expression, Morrison's smug certainty, the weight of his mother's photograph in his jacket pocket. I am honored, Master Hibiki. Stephen moves to the center of the floor. No hurry, no dramatic gestures. Simply a man approaching the space where truth reveals itself. He bows to the visiting masters, to the audience, to the art itself. Then stillness. Stephen closes his eyes and breathes the way his mother must have breathed in that photograph from decades past. In, out, finding the rhythm that connects mind and body in shared purpose. When he opens his eyes, the world has changed, not the physical space, but his relationship to it. The floor beneath his feet becomes sacred ground, the air around him thick with possibility. Stephen begins, not with flashy techniques or aggressive demonstrations, with the fundamental breathing kata his mother would have learned in Master Yamamoto's dojo. Simple movements, arms rising and falling like tides, steps that follow the ancient patterns mapped by generations of dedicated practitioners. But something extraordinary emerges from the simplicity. Stephen moves with the fluidity of water finding its natural course, each gesture flowing into the next without visible effort or conscious thought. The room grows quieter. Even the restless energy of Morrison's supporters settles into attentive silence. This is not performance. This is prayer made visible. Stephen transitions into more complex forms. His body becomes an instrument through which centuries of wisdom express themselves in a wasted motion. No unnecessary flourishes. Pure technique distilled to its essential truth. The visiting masters lean forward in their chairs. Recognition flickering across their weathered features. Master Hibiki's eyes narrow with the intensity of someone seeing something unexpected. Something that requires closer examination. Stephen flows through sequences that most practitioners spend years trying to master. But he doesn't perform them. He inhabits them, lives within them, becomes them. The kata reaches its crescendo. A series of techniques that require perfect balance, absolute timing, complete surrender to the mathematical precision of ancient forms. Stephen's final movement ends with him facing the visiting masters, arms at his sides, breathing barely disturbed. The silence stretches until it becomes a presence of its own. Master Hibiki rises slowly from his chair, his movement deliberate, ceremonial that he approaches Stephen with the careful steps of someone crossing sacred ground. Your name. Tell me your full name. Stephen Seagal. The master's eyes widen slightly. Your mother's name. Mei Seagal. Born Mei Nakamura. Master Hibiki stops directly in front of Stephen, his gaze searching, probing. Mei Nakamura. Student of Master Takashi Yamamoto. Yes. The confirmation ripples through the room like shock waves from an earthquake. Master Hibiki turns toward Master Chun. His voice carries the authority of someone who will not be dismissed. You have been hiding a treasure. Chin's face flushes with embarrassment. Or shame. Or both. Master Hibiki continues, his words measured, precise. Master Yamamoto was my teacher. Mei Nakamura was his most gifted student. The woman who should have inherited his school if she had remained in Japan. He looks back at Stephen. You carry her technique, her precision, her spirit. Morrison's confident expression crumbles like sand castles before rising tide. This man, Master Hibiki points at Stephen, represents a direct lineage to the source of our art. He turns to address the entire room. What we have witnessed is not merely technique. It is transmission. The living embodiment of tradition passing from one generation to the next. Emma's face glows with vindication. Her friends sit transfixed. The flowers they brought now feeling appropriate for the moment unfolding before them. Master Hibiki reaches into his jacket and produces a small wrapped object. I brought this from Japan. Not knowing I would find someone worthy to receive it, he hands the package to Stephen. Inside, a wooden box containing meditation beads carved from ancient bamboo. These belong to Master Yamamoto. He would want his student's son to have them. Stephen accepts the gift with both hands. The weight of honor and recognition finally balancing the years of quiet endurance. The room erupts in genuine applause. Not politeness, not obligation. Pure appreciation for witnessing something extraordinary. Chin approaches slowly, his earlier confidence replaced by visible remorse. Stephen, I owe you an apology. But Stephen is no longer listening to Chun. His attention has shifted to Emma, to her tears of pride, to her friends applauding a man they now understand differently. The knowledge that sometimes truth reveals itself in its own time, in its own way. Master Hibiki bows deeply to Stephen. The student honors the teacher. The demonstration ends, but the energy lingers like the last notes of a symphony, echoing through a concert hall. People move slowly, reluctant to break the spell of what they've witnessed. The visiting masters approach Stephen with the reverence reserved for unexpected discoveries. Master Hibiki introduces his companions. Master Sato, Master Fujimoto. Men whose names are whispered with respect in dojos across Japan. They bow in unison. A gesture that elevates Stephen's status beyond anything titles or certificates could provide. We would be honored. Master Hibiki says to visit your mother's grave, to pay respects to Master Yamamoto's student. Stephen's throat tightens. Mei Seagal rests in Riverside Cemetery, a simple headstone marking a life that carried more significance than anyone knew. She would be honored by your presence. Emma approaches with her friends trailing behind, her eyes still bright with tears of vindication. Dad, I'm so sorry I doubted you. You never doubted me, sweetheart. You doubted other people's judgment. There's a difference. Sarah, Emma's friend who studied martial arts videos all week, steps forward with visible awe. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like watching poetry written with the human body. Stephen bows slightly to acknowledge. Her words, art speaks across all boundaries. Music, dance, martial forms. They all express the same human longing for perfection. Across the room, Morrison stands alone near the equipment storage. His earlier confidence replaced by the hollow expression of someone who has discovered their own inadequacy. Master Chin approaches carrying the framed photograph from 1985, the one that spent decades on his desk before being hidden beneath papers. Stephen, I want to make this right. He holds out the photograph. Stephen young and triumphant, Chin beaming with pride. Both of them believers in the purity of achievement. This belongs in the place of honor, where it's always belonged. Stephen accepts the frame, but his eyes find Chin's with directness that demands honesty. What changed, Master Chin? Between then and now, what made you forget what this represented? Chin's shoulders sag under the weight of admission, fear, economic pressure, the need to attract students who wanted quick results rather than long journeys. He gestures toward Morrison, who continues to stand isolated by his own diminished credibility that I thought modern approaches would. Save the school. Keep us relevant. Profitable. Instead, I nearly lost what made us worth saving. Master Hibiki overhears the conversation. His voice carries the gentle authority of someone who has weathered similar storms. Fear makes cowards of us all. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. That he looks directly at Chun. You have a choice now. Continue down the path of compromise, or return to what you once knew was true. Chin nods slowly, understanding spreading across his features like dawn breaking over mountains. Stephen, I would like to ask something of you. Stephen waits, patient, no longer desperate for approval, but curious about redemption. Would you consider teaching here? Sharing your mother's lineage with students who are hungry for authentic instruction. The offer hangs in the air between them. Not apology exactly, but recognition. Acknowledgement of value that was always present but temporarily obscured. Emma squeezes her father's arm, her touch warm with encouragement. Stephen looks around the transformed dojo. The folding chairs, the banners, the stage where truth finally revealed itself. But beyond the temporary decorations, he sees the training floor where he spent 23 years pursuing something greater than himself. The mirrors that reflected. Thousands of hours of dedicated practice. The worn wooden floors that absorbed the impact of countless techniques performed in service of improvement. This is still sacred space. Regardless of who claims ownership, that I would be honored to teach here. Chin's relief is visible. Physical. The posture of someone who has narrowly avoided losing something irreplaceable. But Stephen continues on one condition. Chin waits. Emma and her friends watch with the intensity of people witnessing negotiations that will determine the future. The teaching must honor my mother's lineage. Traditional forms. Ancient wisdom. The long path toward mastery. No shortcuts. No modern compromises. No dilution of what has taken centuries to perfect. Chun nods immediately. Of course. Absolutely. Stephen looks toward Morrison, who has been listening from his position near the storage area. And Jake can continue teaching his approach to students who prefer that path. The generosity surprises everyone, including Morrison himself. There's room for both philosophies under the same roof. Students can choose their own journey. Master Hibiki smiles with approval. Wisdom recognizes that there are many paths up the mountain. That he approaches the wall where certificates and awards create a gallery of achievement. But this photograph should be displayed here, where everyone can see the fruit of dedication. He takes the 1985 photograph from Stephen's hands and places it in the center of the display. Young Stephen beaming with accomplishment. Chun radiating pride in his students' success. A reminder that excellence transcends temporary doubts. Emma steps beside her father, her voice soft, but carrying clearly through the quieter room. I'm proud of you, Dad. Not just for today, for never giving up, for continuing to practice even when no one seemed to notice or care. Stephen places his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Someone always notices, sweetheart. Sometimes it just takes time for them to find their voice. Outside, the late afternoon sun begins its descent toward the horizon. But inside Tanaka's dojo, something has been restored. Not just Stephen's place within the community, but the community's connection to its own deepest values. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from. 3 months pass like seasons changing from winter to spring. The dojo transforms gradually. Not through dramatic renovation, but through the quiet accumulation of renewed purpose. Stephen's Tuesday and Thursday classes fill with students seeking something deeper than quick fixes. Older practitioners returning to fundamentals. Young people, hungry for authentic challenge. Emma attends regularly now. Her initial curiosity evolved into genuine dedication. Her movements still awkward but improving with each session. Sarah, her friend, who compared martial arts to poetry, proved surprisingly gifted. Natural balance. Instinctive timing. The kind of student who makes teaching feel like privilege. Morrison continues his modern approach in parallel classes. His student base smaller now, but more committed. People who choose his path do so with clear understanding of what they're seeking. The tension that once crackled between different philosophies has settled into respectful coexistence. Point two approaches. To the same mountain. Master Hibiki returns monthly from Japan, not as visiting dignitary, but as friend, fellow practitioner, keeper of traditions that connect past to present. He brings stories of Stephen's mother, memories from Master Yamamoto's dojo, photographs of training sessions where young Mai Nakamura demonstrated the same fluid precision her son inherited. These images join the growing display in the dojo's main hallway, a gallery of lineage, visual proof that excellence transcends individual achievement. Stephen's own photograph from 1985 holds the center position, not because it's the most important, but because it represents the bridge between generations. Below it, a small brass plaque recently installed. In memory of Mai Nakamura, Seagal, student of Master Takashi Yamamoto, teacher, through living example. Emma suggested the wording. Chin approved the expense. Master Hibiki blessed the installation with ceremony that honored both Japanese tradition and American integration. Stephen's teaching style reflects his mother's influence, though he never studied. Directly under her guidance, patience over pressure, precision over power, understanding over mere repetition. His students learn not just techniques, but philosophy. The way martial arts can become meditation in motion. Prayer made visible through disciplined practice. Today marks 6 months since the demonstration that changed everything. Stephen arrives early as always. The morning ritual unchanged despite his new status as instructor. Meditation facing east. Basic forms to center mind and body. Preparation for whatever the day might bring. Kenji, the janitor, joins him in the main training area. At 73, his movements careful but still carrying traces of refined technique. You know, the old man says, settling into stretching position. I studied under Master Chen's teacher. Before this dojo existed. Before any of this modern confusion. Stephen pauses mid-form. In 6 months of renewed relationship, Kenji has never mentioned his own background. You were a student? Kenji smiles. The expression transforming his weathered features. Student. Instructor. School owner. Before arthritis and age convinced me to step back. He gestures toward the photograph display. I've been waiting 40 years for someone to understand what those images represent. Stephen completes his current sequence, then approaches the old man. With new awareness. Why didn't you say anything? During all those months of difficulty? Kenji's eyes twinkle with mischief. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. If I had intervened, you would never have discovered your own strength. He stands slowly. His movements deliberate but graceful. Besides, truth has its own timeline. My job was simply to witness, to remember, to be ready when the moment arrived. The front door chimes. Emma enters with Sarah and 2 new friends. Young women drawn by stories of authentic instruction. Behind them, Morrison arrives for his own class. The dynamic between the 2 instructors now professional, respectful, no longer complicated by territorial disputes. Master Chen emerges from his office carrying the morning mail. His demeanor lighter than it's been in years. Enrollment applications. Insurance renewals. A letter from the International Martial Arts Federation requesting Stephen's participation in next year's Masters demonstration. Recognition that extends beyond local boundaries. Stephen accepts the invitation, but his attention remains focused on the students warming up for morning class. Emma leading. Sarah through basic breathing exercises. Morrison's group practicing conditioning drills with focused intensity. Kenji moving through forms with the fluid grace of someone who has spent decades in conversation with ancient wisdom. This is what his mother would have wanted, not personal glory, not individual recognition, but transmission. The living bridge that carries tradition from one generation to the next. Stephen claps his hands twice. The traditional signal for class to begin. Students arrange themselves in formation, young and old, experienced and novice, all united by curiosity about what they might become through dedicated practice. What would you do if your entire life's work was dismissed with a single glance? The question that began this journey no longer requires an answer. Stephen has demonstrated, through action rather than words. Excellence speaks louder than excuses. Dedication transcends temporary setbacks. Truth reveals itself in its own time. The morning light streams through windows, illuminating the training floor, where new stories begin each day, where tradition and innovation coexist, where a mother's legacy lives on through her son's quiet dignity. Stephen bows to his students. They bow in return. The circle complete. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe.